Afternoon. Welcome to the Childcare Business Growth Podcast. So today I'm super excited again to be joined by the lovely Mrs. Williams. Mrs. Williams, thank you for joining me.
You are very welcome. Hi, everybody.
So today we are talking about one of my favorite subjects. We are talking about touch points. So what do touch points mean? So Jen, what are touch points, first of all? Give us an example.
Touch points are to make sure everything is looking wonderful for when you've got people passing by or anyone that's coming to visit your centre.
Yeah, so any touch point basically, and it could start before that even. It could be a touch point could be when someone makes a phone call into your business. Yeah. It could be, as you said, when someone walks past or just drives by. What does the building look like? So we're going to take you through a really quick analogy, first of all. And what I want to give you is, imagine you're going to a new restaurant, okay? And someone's told you about a restaurant, and which often happens, don't they? People will chat about a restaurant. Oh, you should go to this place. Yeah. What would typically happen is someone will say to you that, oh, you should go to this restaurant. You know, it's great. And then what happens is you start to go through that process, don't you? You check them up online. So what does the website look like? What do the photos look like? Does it look good? Does it look exciting? Does it look different? Does it look, is it fun? So that's the first part.
It's first impressions.
Yeah, totally. So that's the first one. The next one, and this is the one I think often people forget. I ask people, what's next? And they go, well, you go to the restaurant, you walk in. I'm like, no, come back step first. So first of all, how do you find the restaurant? And then can you park outside the restaurant? You wonder, why am I talking about a restaurant right now? Because restaurant is a very similar analogy. We all go through, maybe a few times a year. Some of you maybe go more. But the idea is that when you go to a new restaurant, you're always going through these touch points. So what happens next? You pull up outside. What's the next thing you might judge a restaurant on?
Well, like you say, if you can park easily, what it looks like outside. Does it look clean? Is there lots of rubbish outside?
Yeah, that's a good point. Which happens. Yeah.
Does it look, I don't know, fresh? So if you've got like any pretty plants or something like that outside, in comparison to a dull and boring frontage.
So any of you that's seen our content before in the EC Mastery members area, one of the things we talk about, you'll see touch points in there. And we compare two restaurants, and one of them, there's one that really stands out that looks really attractive, and the other one doesn't look as attractive. And it's all those basic things you just touched about, like the signage, the rubbish outside, and the plants, etc. So that's the next thing. What often restaurants do, you'll notice as well, if you go past on quieter nights, they'll tend to sit people at the front of the restaurant to make it look busy. So because people are judging them, think about this. You are judging a restaurant when you walk past. Does it look busy or not? That's one touch point. One tiny touch point you're judging a restaurant on. So that's why they sit people at the front. It's a strategic move they do. Next one, for any of you that have been to Disney, there's 3 different types of hotel at Disney, 3 different levels as such. And each one of those different types of hotel have different smells associated with them. So if you go to a top of the range hotel, somewhere like, somewhere like the Boat House or the Yacht Club, any of those. So the Beach Club or the Yacht Club. Yeah. If you go to those, they all smell the same. They have this very distinct smell because people remember these things. They remember touch, taste, smell, all your senses. So they're judging you. They're judging the restaurant. You're judging a restaurant on what that smell is like, just like Disney know you're judging them when you walk into the hotel. Because if you go to that particular type of hotel, one time you might stay at the Beach Club, the other one time you might stay at the Yacht Club. They want you to know that they have that familiarity. They know the smell creates familiarity. So again, why is that relevant to you? Well, think about this for a restaurant perspective. When you guys walk into a restaurant, judging you based on, does it smell burnt? Is it a pleasant smell?
Yeah.
What else would you judge them on when you walk through the door? Smell, interaction, what else?
Is it clean?
Yeah.
In there. So like you've just said, if you walk through the door, you don't want to be smelling, dirty nappies.
Well, restaurant now in particular. So we use a restaurant example. So you walk in a restaurant, you got smell of dirty food, burnt food, sound as well, music, any other aspects as well. The other one is a big one is that wait time. How long do you have to wait?
Yeah.
Before you actually get served, which is another big one. So think about this. You're judging the restaurant on all these different touch points. Guess what? That's happening to you guys every single time someone's calling your business. Someone is making inquiry, someone is dropping their child off, checking in on their child. Okay. It's happening every single day. And you're never going to come away from touch points. So what we want to do today, we're going to touch on some touch points with you guys, give you some examples. So, even I remember there was one other thing I shared with you. We went to a childcare business in central London, and I was observing a tour, and a parent turned up with a baby. So in a car seat, and she pulled up outside, and she realized she couldn't park anywhere. And she was already running late for the tour. Then she took 20 minutes to go and find a car parking space. She needed cash at the time as well, because the machine needed cash. And then she came, you can imagine how she felt when she came for that tour.
You'd be a little stressed.
Just a bit.
And overwhelmed with the first.
Yeah. So
the initial start.
And she was already, go on, sorry.
Well, in that scenario, you maybe need to kind of prep what's going to happen, so the parent is expecting
100%
that scenario to happen, because then there would be they will know what to expect and be more prepared. Yeah,
and I think as well, one of the things they could have done easily as a business, they only had 2 parking spaces outside. One of the things I'd be doing, is I'd be saying to those 2 team members that park there, look, certain times of the day, we're going to need to have this space available, because parents need to park, especially some kind of car seat. And, or you say either prep for it, we've got to have a solution, haven't we? We'd either got to let parents know you can't park outside, or there needs to be some type of parking available where they can go to. So that's, guys, that one touch point, the fact that they didn't communicate that to the parents, they're already judging you based on before they've even toured your facility. You already annoyed the parents because they couldn't park outside your building. So
yeah, and I think it's just maybe kind of putting yourself, sometimes we're doing the day-to-day stuff that you actually forget to put yourself in a parent scenario.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's maybe good to kind of put yourself through their scenario to then actually realize what things you need to implement to make that perfect first impression.
And that's perfect, the fact you've just gone on to that, because one of the sheets we do with a lot of the clients we work with in the coaching programs is we do what we call a touch point analysis. One of the things we recommend you do is basically different team members will go around. So you'll have owners, directors, room staff, etc. And you'll get those people to go around and work on their own. It's really important they do the sheet separately, not together. Because what you'll find is an owner will typically be a lot more judgmental than maybe a director, because a director doesn't want to offend the owner as well. But I want you to go around and actually rate those things. So what's the car parking like? How easy is the building to find? There's one analogy. There's one client we've got that's based down in London near Gatwick Airport, and they've got 2 separate buildings. And one of the things when you go to that building, the way they work, basically, younger age group is at the front and the older children in the building at the back. But that building is a few minutes drive down the road from that main building. Now, again, imagine if you didn't tell that parent in advance.
Yeah, you'd parked in the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. You could waste like 15, 20 minutes easily and create a bad first impression. So parents are going to get annoyed by that, especially if they've got to get car seats out and everything else again. So what I want you guys to do off the back of this, comment as well if you want to get a copy of the sheet. We can give you a copy. Just comments touch points down below, and you go through every scenario and you score them. You would score your actual tours, what it looks like from the outside. You'd score your telephone conversations. You score everything. Super important. You score them red, orange, or green, and why you've scored them. And then what you do is you bring that back together, and your team members compare those scores. We often found, didn't we, that we would have very different scores.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but it's actually everyone's opinion, so you can kind of get more.
Yeah. Because everyone has different opinion. Like you and I will have a different opinion of what it looks like as well. So super important for you guys to make sure you do this, because one person's opinion isn't always, the be all and end all. Get some parents, get some team members to judge it. The other thing this does as well is if you get team members to do this tour analysis or the touch point analysis, next time there's a bit of rubbish on the floor, they're going to be more consciously aware that there's a bit of rubbish on the floor. They're going to be more consciously aware that the plant is out of place, or the music isn't on in reception, or the smell isn't quite right. Get your team to buy in more and have more responsibility. And they need to understand why these things are so important to the success of your business as well. So super important to make sure you get that right. So now they're in the building. We've got, if you haven't got, there's a great product that they call Enrollmentizer. Do you want to touch on what that is?
Oh, love it. So we used to have one, and it's so nice to just walk into the area and just have a beautiful calming smell.
And we're not talking about those,
into.
yeah, not those ones that you'd have the mist coming out, not those. They're really basic. There's the ones you can get when you walk into any type of hotel or any type of spa facilities. They have that very unique smell. And they would think something like, I think about 64 different fragrances you could pick from.
Yeah, and you just put it on a timer,
That's
don't
it.
you?
Yep.
And it just automatically does it for you.
And just make beautiful smell in the area. So the whole idea here, guys, is number one, there should be one of those in your reception area. And you can pick different smells. Because remember, people are judging you based on what it smells like. I remember there was that same building in London where a parent came in and she said, I've been to tour 19 other locations. And the reason I'm choosing your location is because, number one, how you made me feel while I walked through the door, and how the smell is so pleasantly clean and it looks clean and tidy. And she'd been to see 19 other facilities, and she chose it. Nothing about the curriculum, nothing about, any of the team, etc. Just just general how people made it feel, and the smell and the cleanliness of the facility. So that just goes to show everyone judges you based on different points. So touch points are critically important. So now someone's in the building, okay? They've come in, we meet and greet them. We have that lovely experience where they come through the door. Actually, we're gonna come back a step first. We're gonna touch on this because I almost missed this one. So one of the things when people look in your website, think about this, there are lots of different people at different stages of the inquiry process. Not everyone is ready to speak to you via the phone, okay? We all know this. Maybe someone, do you want to give an example where someone might not be ready to speak to you on the phone?
I mean, they might be pregnant, so they might not be ready to come in and tour right now, but they're just having, kind of doing their findings on all of the centres around by their home.
And this is the thing we find a lot, don't we, with people who are interested in working with us. We look at a lot of their websites and they'll ask things like child's date of birth, child's name, etc.
Yeah.
We can't, we don't need those things. We don't need them. Yes, they will become more relevant later on if the parent wants a spot. But at the end of the day, don't miss that opportunity, because, there are parents out there right now that are planning ahead for their childcare, but they don't know their child's date of birth. They don't know their name yet because the child hasn't been born. Don't miss that opportunity, okay? Don't always insist that you ask this information. Just get the basics of what you need. But do you want to touch on this, what we do, and why we use these?
Yeah, so we always used to use these because they stand out. They're not just like, I'll
hold one up so everyone can see an idea while you're on talk.
I looked at what everybody else did within our area, and all I got was just normal envelopes and not really anything. Probably pieces of paper inside.
Printed off a normal photocopier.
And it was just really basic and not a great first impression. So we came up with this, which at first it didn't go through their door, but actually it worked in our favour because I hand delivered them, and I knocked on the door and actually had that relationship and initial contact with the parent and just had a chat on their doorstep in their home environment.
This was interesting. I raised this to someone in the US the other day, and someone said, "Oh, it's not like that in America. People would feel you're stalking them." And I get how some people might be concerned, but the point we're trying to make here, number one, for those of you that are listening to this rather than watching this, I'm holding up what we call a parent pack. So it's basically a branded folder that we send out in the mail, okay? We put the address on, but it's got all of our branding all over. So whoever sees this, it's a great opportunity for publicity that it's promoting our business. What Jen said, obviously, most people send an envelope out. You don't know what's in the envelope, okay? But you can guarantee when we send this out, people open this. The other thing we do is as well, you'll hear there's a noise in here, okay? People shake it. It's like with presents. You get presents, you shake those things. So what will happen is we will put like a chocolate bar and a tea bag in there. Chocolate bar, so things people could have while they would look through the information, okay? So think about this. This is another touch point and an opportunity for you to make a great first impression. Now, some of you are thinking, well, that's expensive. But, well, look, guys, you've got to look at what is the cost to acquire a customer here. And if you're trying to compete with the big chains out there, you don't have the same infrastructure as these big chains have. So what you've got to look at is, how do you make sure you differentiate yourselves from those big chains? How do you stand out from the competition? How do you make sure that people pay attention to you over those companies with huge budgets, okay? So these little touch points, these are all the things that will make a huge difference over whether that family comes to you over going to that big corporate chain. Okay.
I think it shows that you're actually you're a nice caring environment.
100%.
And initially maybe when I started taking these, I was a bit like, oh, but actually once you've done your first few and realize how welcoming the parents are, and to have that relationship and conversation with the parent and then carry on that conversation, when you're following up with them later on down the line, you realize how important
100%.
And how effective it is.
And even if someone doesn't, maybe they do feel you're stalking. Okay, if you've got that mindset, just hire a local company to take these out. You could literally hire someone that looks like a delivery driver and goes and drops these off for you. The end of the day, the most important thing is to get something like this in someone's hand, because it's very, very different to what everyone else does. That's the first thing to look at. Next I want to move on to is what we call the video cards. Super important, I think, to touch on. Just to give you guys an idea, those of you listening to this, I'm holding up, if you've ever seen those birthday cards where someone will give you a birthday card and it plays music. Well, the equivalent is this, where you open this and it plays your videos. Okay. And there's a lovely little poem we have on the inside. And it's called, "We may not be their mother, but we care for them each day." And it's basically talking about the importance of having high quality educational staff or childcare staff looking after your children. And this plays the videos. Do you want to touch on some of the videos we put on this?
Yeah, my initial thought was, it's really busy. As soon as someone comes through the door, we should be expecting them. But there are scenarios where, you're maybe speaking to another parent, or you're speaking to a team member and just wrapping up that conversation. But actually these are good, because what we used to do with them, as soon as they walked into the reception area, that team meted and greeted them with a smile. They had the nice smell within the reception.
They had a drink, they had snacks. Yeah,
but actually they had this then to sit down and have a look at while they were waiting.
And one of the things the team would always say to us, I remember Laura in particular, one of our centers, she would talk a lot about, a parent would often say when she was doing a tour, "I've never seen that before." So already before the parents even started a tour, we've got the outdoor car parking space that was allocated for parents. That was one thing we did. We had an allocated space for parents coming for tours. Okay. We had another one for our team members, a team member of the month that would say, "I work my ass off," excuse my language, "work my ass off to park here." That's what we had. Another one. Okay. Super important. Then off the back of that, there were all these other things that we had, that touch points that made a magical experience when someone came through the door. Now you give them the video card. Even if Jen and I were not there, what we could consistently do was make sure they knew our story the exact same way every single time someone came to talk. Because the first video was us, wasn't it?
We were actually sitting on the couch, the settee, having that video on there that they would be sitting on. So it's kind of that connection.
It was. And we would say to them on that particular video, "Hey, look, we know what you're going through. We were in the exact same situation." And it's really important to tell stories. That's what we did. We used this to tell our story. So you immediately get more of a buy-in from the parents. Now, we had 3 videos on here, didn't we?
Yeah.
So a lot of our clients use these. And then basically what we do, video 1 was our story. We were sitting there with our children telling our story. Video 2 was the main promotional video of the center. And then video 3 was testimonials. And the idea is that you just show the parents this. So a lot of that information they need in 5 minutes, they have a lot of that prior to them even starting the tour. Now, in the meantime, your other team members are going off, making sure the center's ready for that tour, just in case you weren't prepped. Okay. So it's really important to have that system in place of the process that you follow when a tour comes through, and video cards are a great way to do that. Now, a couple of things to go into as well. Once parent comes in, what often tends to happen, I want to give you an analogy now of when you go to buy a car. Okay. When you go to buy a car, the last thing that they do is try and show you every single car in the showroom. So why does that relate to childcare? Well, think about this. What they do in a car dealership, they will often, you'll come in and they will turn around and say to you, "Hey, what are you looking for? Is it a big family SUV? Is it a, I don't know, sports coupe, whatever it is?" They're going to question you and ask you, what are you actually looking for? And the reason why they do that is because they want to make sure they personalize it according to what you need. They're not going to show you every single car because you're just wasting theirs and your time. So how does that relate in childcare? It's the same scenario. Okay. Every parent's looking for something different. Do you want to give some examples that we spoke about before, why someone might be different?
Yeah, I mean, some parents might be focused on the education.
Yeah.
Some parents might be focused on
Safety is one.
yeah, safety. Yeah, every parent has different different thoughts and different focuses on what's key to them.
Yeah,
I
priorities
guess
them.
to make sure, because at the end of the day they've got to kind of let go of that child's pass over, and they want to make sure those boxes are ticked.
And this is a big one we've found, that what we do is what's called a needs analysis. So the idea here is you sit the parent down at the start and you actually ask them, hey, what are you looking for in a high quality childcare provider? You sit them down and actually ask them first. And what often would happen, again, people would say to you, oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Whereas some parents that may be coming from an educational background would say, oh, well, curriculum is really important to me. Outdoor play is important to me. Security is important to me. And I always tell the story, and I apologize for those of you who heard it before, but I was in a center once in Liverpool where a parent came in for a tour, and within 2 minutes, the parent actually stopped the tour and said, I don't want to go any further, because the last center my child was at, they almost got out of the facility. And as a result of that, I've just seen your door is open over there. So security isn't a top priority for you. So I'm not going to bring my child here. And the director, the manager at the time, was really shocked. She didn't know how to react to that. And the reason why that happens was because she didn't do a needs analysis. If she knew that that dad was really concerned about security, she could have pointed out why the door was open. She could have pointed out the benefits of the cameras or the 2-door security entry system. All those factors she could have focused on. And what often tends to happen, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, what we often tend to do is do the same tour time and time again, and we don't personalize it according to what the parent wants.
Yeah, and then it becomes information overload. So we're just throwing all this information at them rather than focusing on those pointers that you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt your content right now, but I wanted to give you this quick message. If you're enjoying this amazing content from all these amazing coaches and speakers around the world, I want to encourage you to go and check out ecemastery.com. I promise you it's going to be a big game changer for you and all your team. There are over 60 different coaches from all around the world to help you to grow your early childhood education business. Now, if you haven't checked it out, go and check it out right now. I promise you it'll be a big game changer. Now, let's get right back into the content.
Okay, so once we do this needs analysis, super important that now we know what the parent's looking for. We're going to take them around the facility, okay? And I often hear mixed feelings about this. Some people say, well, I'm only going to show them the room that's relevant to them. So, for example, if you've got a 3-year-old coming for a tour, they miss the baby room, they miss the toddler room. And my argument for that has always been, well, just because they're not necessarily looking for now, what if one of their friends is looking for a childcare spot? What's your thoughts on that, Jen?
I mean, personally, I always showed them all
the whole facility.
All of the rooms, because who knows, they might have had another child and then they may be looking for the baby spot in the near future.
Yeah, totally. So first of all, make sure you show them around the whole facility, because at the end of the day, you don't know what their situation is. They might have friends, family, or they might be expecting another child. They just haven't put that out publicly yet. Yeah. So show them around the whole facility, because you want them to have that full spectrum. I don't give them a choice. I know some people give them a choice. I just literally go straight into the tour and obviously then show them around. Now, there's a big debate around how many touch points do you go on per room? How many things do you talk about? And I remember being in one center and a parent was in the very first room, and the parent turned around and said, oh my gosh, there's so much information, I can't take it all in. And it made me think at the time, we're only in the first room. Like, she's got another 4 or 5 different rooms to go yet. We haven't even looked at the outdoor space. Like, she's not going to remember all this.
No.
So the point I want to encourage you guys to, and this is going to give some of you heart palpitations, okay, but bear with me, 2 to 3 points per room. That's it.
Yeah.
And then allow the parent to take that in. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's the main bits within the area.
Yeah.
Definitely, because they're not physically going to remember everything. So it's just the selling points that makes that area stand out.
That's it. 2 to 3 max, and then hold back and let parents take it in.
Yeah.
I think people find that hard. It's that silence that they find awkward. And
I just remember when I was touring as well, like having kind of So we had different boards set out around,
Centres,
around the centres, but it was always kind of like a prompter for me to,
good shout.
kind of incorporate that within the tour as well, just because they're the points that set us apart from anybody else.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is, it might sound crazy, but actually having different smells in different rooms, different age groups, I'm a big advocate of that. Because senses are one of the things that heighten you the most. So I would encourage every one of you have a different smell in each room. For example, in your preschool room, you might have a bacon smell. Okay, in your baby room, you might have a baby powder smell. Because people remember these things. As silly as it sounds, you're actually taking people. We're in an experience culture now. Think of all the things you do on weekends, etc. They're all experience based. So you want to take your parents through an experience when they come for that tour. You want people to think, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Like that was actually really a nice experience. Yeah, exactly. Think about that. We are in that, you've got all these different, game rooms and all these different experiences you go on now. Take people on experience when they go through your center. The other thing I want to encourage you to do as well is make sure you know what the child's interested in, because this is a big one.
Yeah, we always say that. Even if it's, knowing that information as soon as they walk through the door.
Yeah, or ideal on the phone call before they come through.
Yeah, so you're prepped for the tour, so you know exactly, the names of the child, but also, like you say, the interests and what they like, because then you've got that instant connection.
And the other thing is obviously have that set up in the room. Okay, really important that your team know the parent's name and they know the child's name. Let's imagine I was taking our youngest child, Noah, for example, into a preschool room. One of the things I would expect is that they all, come up and introduce themselves to Noah. They'd be at Noah's level, or at least one of them would come up and say, hey, you must be Noah. I've heard so much about you. I heard you're really interested in trains. Look what's over there. And immediately you've just gone that one touch point has made a massive connection with that child. And what's happening off the back of that is you'll typically find that the child will now start to go over and engage. And what the parent will say, and I've heard this hundreds of times, parent will turn around and say to you, he didn't do that at the other centers we went to visit.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one for parents, isn't it? To actually see their child in that environment and actually see them going off and going to do their own little thing, maybe kind of mingling with the other children.
Yeah, exactly.
Me as a parent, that would be a
massive
big one.
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. Another one as well is, I know centers have mixed feelings around this, but one of the things I want to encourage you, let's imagine you're going into the preschool room, and I would encourage you to get the room leader at that point to come and take over. I would let the room leader sell their room, because what this does, I know some of you are concerned about that, but it's important you have confidence in the team. What I would do in this scenario, I would make sure that the room leader takes over. The reason for this is because they know everything about the room, but more importantly, it shows that your room leader is confident at leading. So it helps that parent feel more comfortable, rather than what often happens. Like we see this a lot, don't we? We'll go into a center, the person doing the tour runs the whole tour, and the staff don't even engage with the parent.
Yeah.
That does not portray confidence at all, does it?
No, and I think it's about the team then kind of having that relationship with the parent as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think a lot of our parents that was the main thing. They loved having that connection.
The interaction, and that and they know the team are confident. So now we've done the main tour, so we've taken them around all the different facilities. What I often find is most people do this where they stand up at the end, don't they? They don't sit down. I think about this. If you're in a sales scenario, which this is, parents are going to feel like you're almost rushing them out the door if you're keeping them standing up. So one of the things we would always do is we'd take them back through into a nice area, and we would sit them down and go, okay, thanks so much for touring. We'd give them a drink, and we'd make them feel at home. We'd take the time. Someone was telling us the other day, do you remember that tour we had the other day? So how long are your tours taking? And they said, oh, they take about an hour. I said, oh, that's great. Okay, good. 45 minutes to an hour. I said, how long is the actual, the tour? It's 10 minutes. I said, well, hang on a sec. What do you do for the other 45 to 50 minutes? Well, I interview the parent, and I said, oh my gosh, no. We're doing this the total wrong way around, okay? Because what we need to do instead is we should be spending way more time on the tour, and then sitting down the parent, asking them the questions here off the back of that. Is there anything we didn't answer? Yeah. How did it go? Now, based on what you said, and also recommend to the parent, hey, by the way, totally understand you're going to have to go and look at other facilities, but based on what you've told us, you were looking for security, you're looking for lots of outdoor play space, you're looking for a conference team, whatever those factors are that they mentioned at the start, you're now ticking those things off in the parent's mind. you're reassuring the parents that you've already addressed those points. So super important to do that. Off the back of that as well is, I would then start to say, look, based on everything you've told me today, Jenna, I think, I really believe that no would settle in really well here. Totally understand you've got to go away and look at other options. And this is where you've got to dial your sales process in. But, do you ask for the enrollment at that point? Or do you insist your team say to the parent to take that away? Or can they stipulate the time frame they're going to follow up? Say, I know you've got to go and see some other facilities. Is it okay if I follow up with you 2 days from now? You just got to make sure you dial the process in as much as possible so your team know the exact blueprint that you want them to follow. Okay. If you're what I've done for your clients, that one of the things you can do, you can actually send in your tours. We will evaluate them for you and we'll give you honest feedback that you can then share that back with your team as well. Super important. Now, any other points you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, if you can kind of get them over the line there and then so be it.
100%.
Don't kind of hold off. Sign them up if you can.
Yeah, 100%. Just a quick one as well, by the way, if you want to go and access how to do the perfect tour, head over to the members area, ecmastery.com. You'll see the content inside there, by the way, and it will give you a full breakdown of how to do the perfect tour. It gives you all the tour touch points, everything for you to work through. So super important I want to go into on this. Once we're obviously focusing a lot here around the parent experience. One of the biggest things we're seeing right now, when we look at the data that comes in, so we use a platform called Childcare Automation, and when we look at the dashboards, we're seeing a lot of calls not being answered, aren't we? And that's a big problem. Any thoughts, comments around that right now?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a parent dialing in to get a tour booked.
Yeah, it could be a parent, maybe they're concerned about their child because they weren't settled well. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Two different ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
So the point I want to make here, guys, super important that we are seeing a lot where phone calls are not being answered. And the owners I'm speaking to, a lot of them didn't know that was happening. So one thing I want to encourage you to do, because this is a critical touch point, is you need to make sure your phones are getting answered. People are being responded to, because you've got messages now coming from Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, text, phone calls, emails, all different types of platform. So what do you have in place to make sure those messages are responded to? And what happens if a message comes in at 11 o'clock at night, on a Friday, how does that get responded to? Super important you have some type of solution in place now in the world that we live in. People want responses quickly. And if you don't respond to them quickly, they're going to go elsewhere.
Bad experience.
Totally bad experience.
Not a good touch point.
Yeah. So I encourage you guys, make sure you've got a solution in place. We now live in the world of AI. We've just introduced this. For those of you that are watching this, we've just introduced, I'm super excited by this, voice AI. So anytime a new phone call comes in, it gets answered. Any time of day, 24 hours a day, those phone calls now get answered. So if you want to go and check that out, childcareautomation.com, go and have a look. You'll see it on there. It's an amazing new feature. Super excited about that. But imagine all your conversations and your phone calls get answered 24/7 and you don't need to worry about them. They're being dealt with.
Yeah.
And think about this. You need to have, in my eyes, well, both of us believe this, you should have a separate phone up for inquiries versus your existing families, okay? Because an existing family might have a crisis going on and they need to speak to a team member quickly, okay? So you need to make sure those phone calls get answered, because the last thing you want is a really annoyed parent. But on the flip side to that, if a new inquiry comes through, you need to make sure you have an experienced team member that then deals with that inquiry. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and know what the process is to actually deal with the inquiry as well. Because
we've often had it. I've turned up at centers, just for example, I'll give you an example. I was at an event this weekend, just gone. I was in Abu Dhabi, went to a school and nursery show in Abu Dhabi, and it was full of all the big suppliers as usual, the big companies. But I don't think I've told you this. Some of the companies were very switched on. They'd have a QR code, they'd get me to fill a form in, and they'd get all my details. One other company literally gave me a sheet of white paper and asked me to put all my contact details on the sheet of white paper. And there were 9 or 10 other people's contact details on the same sheet. That one first impression has ruined my experience with that company already.
Well, it puts you off, doesn't
it? And the fact is, my data was public in front of everyone else. There were literally 9 or 10 other parents on the same sheet of paper. And for me, that just shows me the level of professionalism that they had. That one touch point gave me a negative experience of that facility. Okay. Yeah. Now, let's touch on, because I think this is important. I love these that we touch on. Drop off at the start of the day. Most importantly, collection at the end of the day. What were some of your biggest bugbears when a child was being collected at the end of the day that would often go wrong?
Yeah, I think the big one really for me is the fact that the child must, might have had the most amazing day, but then when they get picked up, they're not actually ready and looking. They might have they've had lots of fun, that they were dirty, or they've got snotty noses. Now, some parents might have the concept that, if they're dirty, it looks like they've had so much fun. But some parents like them to be pristine.
Yeah, or the snotty nose is a big one.
But the snotty nose is definitely a no-no for all parents.
Yeah. So the three common ones we had that we would really focus on eradicating was snotty noses, misplaced items, bottles, teethers, shoes.
Making sure they've done the diaper before.
Yeah, and then the diaper was the other one. So making sure they had a clean diaper. And what would often happen is you'll have a team member that has changed them half an hour before, and then all of a sudden, before the parent collects them, they might have soiled themselves, and then parent makes it looks the parent you haven't looked after the child.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with this in your center, and it's a common thing that happens, I want you to think of an analogy that tell your team this story. That look, you could give that child the most amazing day possible. They could have said their first words, taken their first steps. Your team members are super excited to tell those parents everything about their first day, okay, or about the day. And then all of a sudden, parent comes in, they've had a tough day at work, maybe. And what happens is, what the parent's going to judge you on is what they see there and then. Snotty nose, diaper, dirty, whatever it is. Everything good that you did that day goes out the window.
Yeah.
And think about how that makes your team feel. So it's important you share that analogy with your team, or that scenario there, because it will help them realize that those little tiny touch points at the end of the day need to be magical again, because you don't want that parent to have that negative experience. Parents already feel guilty that they're dropping their child off to childcare sometimes. Not every parent, but some parents do. And they feel that guilt. So imagine if you've got a child that actually now has a snotty nose, or is upset, or anything like that, or shoes gone missing. They're going to feel that you've neglected their child during that day.
Yeah, and I think it's deflating for the team member as well.
100%.
When you're so excited, but then you get deflated that you've now got, a parent not very happy with you.
Yeah, off the back of that, 100%.
But then it's for them to actually open up their mind and understand a little bit more to not let that happen.
Yeah, and so one of the things I want to share this with you, because I think this gives you a good analogy or comparison of this. One of the things Walt Disney did, and I'm a big fan of Walt Disney, one of the things he paid meticulous attention to is that he would have obviously all the different people, the cleaners would be there. And one of the things you'll notice that if you've ever been to Disney, the cleaners not only will draw Mickey Mouse on the floor, okay, because they love that interaction. They love to make sure that their team feel valued and they get appreciation. But one of the big things they focus on is when you come out to the parks at the end of the day, it's really hard to find any type of gum as you exit a park in Disney. Okay, when you go next time, test it. Have a look if you can see any rubbish around Disney. One of the things you'll find, you'll really struggle to find this stuff. I remember someone I used to work with, he purposely tested this. He was in Magic Kingdom. He had a huge popcorn, and he made his child drop the popcorn on purpose. I know, that's quite horrible. It's quite harsh. But he made the child drop the popcorn to see how quick it would be picked up. And literally in minutes, they came over, or seconds, sorry. They came over, cleared up all the popcorn, drew Mickey Mouse on the floor with water, and got him a new popcorn in exchange. Like, how insane is that touch point? But what they realize is, think about this, at Disney, particularly, wherever Disney is, you've got a California or Orlando, you might go along to that park. You might spend, 9-10 hours in that park. The scenario is when you come out at the end of the day, it's hot weather. What if you're treading gum? Maybe you got some new sneakers on, okay? How does that make you feel? It's that same scenario of you've had an amazing day, but everything goes out the window because literally you've just trodden gum and you're judging it based on that experience.
Yeah.
So you'll notice they pay meticulous attention to every single touch point. There's one other one I want to share with you as well. And I apologize, but Disney's a big thing for me. But it's super important. What they did, at the end of one of the big things with Disney, you come into the park, you park your car. If you've ever parked at Magic Kingdom, it is super easy to get lost because the car park's huge. So if you've been in Magic Kingdom for 8, 9, 10 hours and you come out at the end of the day and you forget where the car's parked, maybe dad's parked it and you totally forget.
You're so exhausted.
Yeah, you forget you've had a great day, but then you come out and then you have no idea where you park your car. And then what happens is dad ends up actually blaming mum because he can't find the car that he forgot where he parked it. So one of the team members, listen how magical this is. There are 7,000 people that work at Disney, okay, in this particular park. And one of the things one team member out of 7,000 realized was that we need to stop this happening. So what they did is when the people came into the park every day, they would know at what time they parked what row. So if you came in, for example, between 10 and 10:15, they would know that you probably parked in row E or row F. So what they would typically do is they would, the car park attendants in the morning would write down the times of what row they parked at what time. When they got to lunchtime, they would then copy those sheets. They would give them out to the staff that were coordinating the car parks at the end of the day. And as a result of that, what would then happen is when a parent comes out and dad blames mom, even though it was dad's fault, dad's lost the car, what they often say is, hey, don't worry, it always happens. So where did mum park the car? Joking, it was dad. Where did dad park the car? So what time roughly did you come in? And they will ask you, oh, I came in between maybe 10 and 10:30. Okay, so that looks like you're probably going to be parked somewhere between row E to row G. Hop in the van or the cart and we'll take you over there right now. So they realized that one touch point could ruin the whole experience of what that day that they had at Disney. So you're going to say?
It just made me think you saying that the team member actually come up with
Exactly.
that touch point. Going back to what we said earlier about the touch points, making sure that the team and kind of scoring everything within the centre.
Yes.
Then it's super important that you get everyone's opinion who works there.
And it'll make them buy in more, won't it, as well? Yeah. And I just, the point I was trying to make there is that one team member out of 7,000 came up with that idea.
Yeah.
Are you empowering your team? Like Jen was just saying, you're empowering your team to come up with those ideas and that creativity to actually improve that experience. But the starting point here for every one of you, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a tour, whether it's a stay and play session, it's parent drop off, parent phone call coming in throughout the day, or, you know, how parents communicate with you via email or over the weekend, whatever it is. Judge yourself first of all. Write down what you currently score yourself. Is it red, orange, or green? And then what are you going to do to improve those things? Once that's done, get your team to do the same thing. And then ask them for feedback on how they would improve those things too. Because what you'll find off the back of this, guys, is going to get your team to, number one, buy in more. They'll realize the importance of these touch points, and they'll realize they can create more magical experiences that ultimately will help them to have a better day.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's perfect.
Guys, we could talk to you about touch points all day. We love this. If any of you want to go deeper on this, you've got any further questions, reach out or put it in the comments down below. If you like this type of content, make sure you like and subscribe as well.
Yeah. And I was just going to say about the perfect tour as well, just to remind.
Yeah,
you
so
can find that if you need help.
If you're in the program, go over to the coaching program. You'll find it. It's under the perfect tour. And there's a whole checklist with example videos for you guys to go and check out as well. So go and check that out inside EC Mastery. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We hope you like this content. If you like any other tips or trips around touch points, let us know, and we'll make sure you get back with all your